I think internships are so crucial in today's age of gaining some hands-on experience and some networking opportunities in your area of study. And a lot of times, like at least when I coached and a lot of my former players, where they internship often led to their job when they graduated. And so, what type of internships have the players had? Is there somebody on campus that's helping you find those?
Dreaming of playing college basketball? The recruiting process can be overwhelming, but with Net Results Recruiting, you're not alone. My name is Steve Schafer. I'm the founder and president of Net Results Recruiting, a full-service basketball recruiting solution based in Arizona. I spent 21 years coaching college basketball at 3 different levels, decided to get out of coaching because I really wanted to start something that's truly going to help players, families navigate the college basketball recruiting process. There's a lot of companies out there, but I don't know that they all do the things that Net Results Recruiting provides. Our goal is to find options for players that are the right fit at the right level so players can have a great experience playing college basketball. College recruiting is competitive. If you're not getting the exposure you need, you could be missing out on opportunities. Coaches can't recruit you if they don't know who you are. At Net Results Recruiting, we take the guesswork out of the process by providing a complete recruiting solution, including a personalized recruiting profile that has the right information that college coaches want to see, an evaluation of your game to help us assess what levels you can play at, and a tool to help you improve your game, a player priority list that allows your recruiting expert to understand what is important to you when considering potential college options, promotion to college coaches, and a huge network of college coaching contacts to maximize your exposure. And finally, expert guidance and advice throughout your recruitment journey. Don't leave your future to chance. Get started today with Net Results Recruiting and take control of your basketball journey. Your dream, your future, let's make it happen together.
Welcome to the Recruiting Assist, brought to you by Net Results Recruiting. My name is Matt Bright, Regional Director for Recruiting at Net Results. Joining me as always is our President and Founder in sunny Arizona, Steve Schafer. What's going on, Coacher?
Hey, Matt, how are you?
I'm good. We got a really important topic tonight that I think will be very helpful for players and for parents, because this is one thing that we get in talking with families that they need the most help with, I think.
Yeah, how to evaluate college basketball programs holistically as a recruit and a parent. And, things we're going to cover tonight is, is it a basketball fit? Is it an academic fit? What is the campus life and environment like? What's the coaching staff and culture? Does it fit my budget financially? What kind of scholarships are they offering? What's the long-term outlook if I, commit to this school? Those are all, things that each player and parent should be considering when evaluating a basketball program. So we're going to dive into each one kind of individually, and hopefully our audience get some great takeaways from tonight's conversation.
Yeah. And credit to you. I think your mom gave you this piece of advice, and I used it going forward. Of one big thing is take basketball out of the equation, and really take a step back and look at the school. So props to Mama Schafer for that one of that advice.
Absolutely. That was the biggest thing she said when I was, trying to figure out my path back in high school was, what school fits you outside of basketball? And that's the school I chose. And like, I got hurt my junior year and basketball was taken away. And, thankfully I chose a school that fit me holistically as a person, as a player, as a student, and I really enjoyed the rest of my time at that school and had a great experience. I think all of these things are really important. Evaluating a program beyond just the level and the name recognition is huge. I mean, I think the common mistakes that a lot of families make when they go through this process is they get hung up on level. They're waiting for the coach at the school they really want to go to reach out to them first. And they fail to do their research. We'll talk about all 3 of those here now, but those are the big three that I always say as we've been doing this now, you and I, for almost 4 years. I think those are the things we really got to educate families on at the front end to make sure that they're understanding where I can play, what schools fit what I'm looking for, and how to evaluate all those things to ensure it's the right fit.
So let's talk about like name recognition, because there's 2,000 schools out there. Okay. The average high school player or parent, they don't know, I'll be nice. They don't know 3/4 of them. Okay. Probably more. And so name recognition, I think, is a big one that people may know, like regionally, like what's real close to them. Oh, I've heard of that school. I've heard of this school. But like where you're at in Arizona, there's not that many schools. So if they're hearing about schools in Missouri and Illinois and Iowa, like they've never heard of them, they don't know the first thing about them. So oftentimes, and like I said, doing this for 4 years, some parents are very dismissive. It's more the parents than the kids. I've never heard of that school, so it must be not a good school. Like, no, let me explain this to you. So I think that name recognition is, and Coach Becker, when we had him on last episode, put your ego in check, be curious, just like learn about the schools and what they have to offer. Just because you've never heard of it doesn't mean it's a bad school, quote unquote.
Yeah. I think the first piece is understand levels, like what it takes to play at each level. Division I is different than Division III, Division II. So understanding what it takes to be a Division I player is important. And in our process with Net Results, we guide families and have a resource that talks through that, so kids can really understand, if I'm a 6-foot guard, what do I need to be doing to be getting looked at by a Division I school? Those are things that are important for families to understand. A lot of times parents will have the blinders on and think their kid is better than they are, and you have families that, well, my kid played against that kid who signed at that Division I and outplayed him. Well, that doesn't mean your kid is better than that kid or is a better fit. So that stuff's really important, is understanding what it takes to play at each level. And then once you figure that out or are self-aware and that type of thing, it's okay, this is the level I can play at. What are my options? What's out there? And a quick story, I don't think the parent would mind me saying this, and I'm not going to say who it is, but we had a parent from Arizona that I worked with, one of my favorite families I've worked with. And they really didn't have a lot of understanding or, knowledge of Division III basketball, what was out there, especially at the high academic level. And their son was a very high academic kid. And so we introduced them to a school called Tufts University out in the Boston area. And at first, Dad's like, man, I've never heard of that school. Like, what are they all about? And I said, well, man, it's one of the best, high academic schools in the country. And they're a top 25 perennial D3 program. And they're in a great location, it checked a lot of boxes for the player. And they went out and visited. And I remember getting a phone call one evening from the father in his hotel room after the first day of the visit. And he's like, man, like, this place is incredible. I'm shocked at what this place is. And they were just floored at all the things that Tufts, offered from a personal, academic, and basketball standpoint. And their kid ended up committing to Tufts. He's still there. He's having an outstanding experience. And those are the cool things that we're able to do for families. And again, it's a family that had no idea that school, existed and what that school's reputation was. So it's really important that families do their due diligence, do their research, are self-aware, and really are honest with themselves about what level their son or daughter can play at. And they're not sitting back waiting for a phone call. Like, there's a lot of schools that are going to go recruit transfers heavily. There's schools that are in the Midwest and East Coast that may not have an opportunity to get out to Arizona, or a school on the West Coast that may not have an opportunity to get out to Missouri where you live and may not find your players. So it's important for them to be proactive and, send their stuff out and reach out to colleges that they have an interest in, so those are just some common mistakes that I think parents make, or families make, players make, that hinder the process.
And you said something several times there that we preach to the athletes we work with, a level you can play at, right?
Yes.
You might be able to go to a higher level, right? Are you going to see the floor? And with the portal and things now, it's so common for kids to jump, up, and kids to fall down because they went to you see this all the time. There's however many bajillion kids are in the portal for Division I, half of them are not going to find another Division I spot. And more times than not, those kids that are getting in the portal that don't find a home, they couldn't play there in the first place.
Yeah.
They were, a staff was reaching with that kid or thought this kid was going to develop and the kid just didn't. The ones that aren't finding another home at that level is because they can't play there. So that's why they end up at a Division II and NAI back to JUCO or Division III, because they're not a Division I player. Some of them, if they would have taken a different route and went to that Division II, that NAI, that D3, that JUCO, where they could play and see the floor and develop later on, then get in the portal and move your way up. So like you said, play at, right? There's not a kid that we work with or a kid that we recruited or a kid that we coached that thought they should play less minutes, right? Every kid wants to play. You give the kids, how many minutes should you play a game? There's 200 minutes in a college basketball game. And if you add up what everybody says, you need like 1,850 minutes to get everybody what they think they should play. Like there's not enough opportunity out there. So the level that you can play at, I can't stress that enough for families, because you want to go in as a freshman at any one of those levels. It's really hard to find the floor.
Yeah. And you bring up a great point, and I think families need to realize, what's going on in college basketball right now. You've got the unlimited transfer rule. You've got the transfer portal, which is insane, right now. And now you've got the NIL revenue share, so that changes things with schools that opt in at the Division I level, because now they're going to have 15 scholarships, but can only have 15 players. So those schools that have 16, 17 guys, they're going to have to be pinching out some players and saying, hey, we can't have you back. There's no more walk-ons really at that level. There's schools that opt in. So, you've got some kids that went D1 that were really good high school players, but like you said, they go somewhere and it doesn't work out. And so now they're in the portal and they got to go down. You got kids at Division II, Division III that were all Americans or really, really good players that are looking to go up. So you've got all this shifting going on, and it's a trickle down effect, as we get down to each level, and it's making it harder and harder for high school kids to find opportunities. And I would say this, what a kid that was a Division I player out of high school 5-6 years ago, maybe isn't anymore, because they're going to take a transfer over him or her because that kid's more ready to play and can be an impact immediately, and they know what they're getting. So it's just a different world we're living in, and kids need to be open-minded to all levels, be adaptable to the process, and understand that this is a journey, and be patient, because it could be a while before you might get the opportunity you're looking for. And a lot of schools are working later. The urgency of coaches going out in the summer, especially Division I coaches, to find the kid that they want at the high school level isn't like it used to be, because they know that portal is going to open up in the winter and they can go find really good guys that they can replace, for their roster. So you make a great point with the playing time piece. The other thing too is that's why we have a priority list that we, as part of our process, so we can figure out how important is playing time as a freshman. How important is location? How important is academic fit? These are things that kids need to figure out and prioritize, so they're targeting the right schools at the right levels where they can play, and the schools that have what they're looking for academically, socially, personally, and athletically.
And you brought up a point about schools, the Division I schools opting in. There's going to be schools that opt out. They're not going to be at the Division I level anymore. Where are they going to go? And so that, no one knows what that's going to look like in the future. This whole thing, every time we talk to families, it's something new. What's that going to look like? Where are those schools going to go? So you may have I think that's going to be with the lesser named recognitions. You're not going to see a Power 4 school opt out, but some of those low majors, who knows what's going to happen with that? Because
I think a lot of those low majors that will opt out will stay Division I, but what they're going to do is they'll take walk. I talked to a school on the East Coast. They're not going to opt in, so they're going to take 2 or 3 walk-ons a year. But what they're doing with those positions is, hey, we want you to come here. You're going to be a part of our team, treated just like everybody else on our roster, and be a part of our program in every single way. But you're going to walk on. So you're going to get an academic scholarship. We don't have athletic money for you. And one of the things we need you to do to commit to this walk-on spot is pay X amount of dollars to our NIL fund. This school is trying to raise $350,000 of NIL money. And one way of doing that is take 3 walk-ons. They're going to pay X amount of dollars towards that fund. So, I mean, there's a lot of things schools are doing to get creative to raise money for NIL and stuff like that. So, it's going to be different, and the walk-on positions are going to change for the schools that opt out. So, it's going to be different. So, but you brought up basketball fit. You talked about playing time, style of play. I think those are important things that players and parents need to assess when they're choosing a college. Is what is the style of play that this program plays? How do I fit in with my skill set? What's the player development like in this program? Do they, D3s only get a certain amount of time preseason, a certain amount of days, before the season starts to do some on-floor stuff. They get no days when the season's over in the postseason, whereas D1, D2, and AI, they can do workouts in the preseason, postseason, things like that. So player development's different at every level. But that's a big piece of what you're looking for. That you got to think about that. Roster composition. How many players are we carrying? How many are at my position? How many are seniors? How many are coming back next year? Like, these are all things that I think kids need to look at when they're assessing the basketball fit.
And looking at the seniors, you need to go back and look at rosters for the past couple of years and see if you're recognizing same names.
Great point.
Throughout. Like go back for, there's 8 seniors on the roster. Okay, great. Go back 4 years ago. How many of those guys were there 4 years ago? And made their way through. Okay. And how many seniors were there 4 years ago? Are you seeing a good number of seniors year after year after year, or are you seeing 1 or 2? That is something to look at. What's going on. That kind of gives you a look into that program. Oh, they usually have senior class. Like, 1 year it might only be 4, but maybe they got 6 1 year. They got more than 1 or 2. All right, those guys and gals have been there for 3 or 4 years. So that shows there's something in that culture. But if you look, like we were talking before we came on the air, the roster, our second year coaching together, we had, I don't even know, 14 freshmen or some ungodly number. It was crazy. And if you see, well, okay, what's going on here? Oh, new coaching staff. Something's going on. But then if you watch that group, how many of them made it through their senior year? Then there was a big class of seniors that went with them. So do your homework, and you can do online. You can go back and look at rosters for the last couple of years. There's going to be turnover. There's going to be some, but if you're seeing more than 1 or 2 seniors year after year after year, it's probably a good sign of something going on in the culture of that program. Same time, you can look at the coaching staff that goes with that as well. Is there continuity? Okay, like when we coached together, Fontbonne University has just closed, but in its history, basketball started there in the 80s up until 2025. There was only 4 head coaches in the program's history, and the guy who was the last head coach had been there almost the whole time as an assistant. So there's a lot of continuity there if you can go through and look in that. But if you're seeing a new head coach year after year after year, that may be something too to look at for the fit of the roster. Those two may work together. They may be totally separate entities.
Yeah, I think the roster piece is big. And how many transfers do they have on the roster? I remember a year or 2 ago, we had a kid get invited to a camp at a school in the West, Division I, and really excited to go. He wasn't a Division I player, but he had, he was fully prepared to go to camp because he got an invite. And I looked at the roster; they had 12 kids rostered at the time. 9 were transfers, and I talked to the staff, and this was a big kid, and they were going to go transfer at his position. So we told the family, hey, don't go to this camp. They're not going to recruit him. And so I think looking at not only the number of players, how many seniors, but how many transfers do they have? Are they a transfer heavy program recruiting transfers versus high school players? And I want to get back to style of play. I think that's really important. Like, when you go on a campus and you're assessing and evaluating a program, like, the coaches are going to tell you everything you want to hear. You know, a lot of them will tell you, you know, what you need to hear, but they're going to definitely tell you what you want to hear because they want you there, right? But I think it's important. You got to ask questions, right? Like, coach, you know, do you guys play up tempo? Or, you know, what's your style of play? If I'm a big kid and I want the basket, and I'm a guy that's always had the ball in my hands, and the offenses ran through me in high school. You know, watch the team that's recruiting you and see how they utilize their 4s and 5s. Are you just a screener rebounder? You know, do they run things for their bigs? Do they play through their bigs? Or are they just kind of, you know, props out there screening and rebounding and just kind of, you know, space eating inside and kind of cleaning up the misses and stuff like that? Like, how do they use their bigs, you know? And again, go back, how do they develop? You know, look at their bigs or look at their guys and how have they developed over 4 years and how much have they improved? Do they have a program in place to develop their players? Like, these are all things that the families and players need to be asking when they're assessing the basketball side of it, right? And that kind of goes into what you were talking about leading up, you know, the coaching staff and the culture, coaching stability, which you touched on, right? Is the culture toxic or is it positive, you know? And I think that leads to what's the retention look like on the roster? If you're seeing turnover a ton each year, maybe there's something wrong there, right? You know, so how much access does the players have to the coaches? I remember when I played, like, you know, you got the relationship with the head coach after you graduated. You didn't really get it while you were there, you know? Whereas like when I coach, I had an open door policy and we had guys, sometimes I'm like, you guys get out of my office, I gotta get some work done, right? So like, what's the relationship like that you get with a coach? Is it a relationship oriented situation or is it a transactional oriented situation? So like, these are all things you need to be assessing when you assess schools. And again, ask questions. Hey, when you're with the players, like, hey, how's it like playing for coach? Like, do you feel like you've got a good relationship with him? Is he what's it like in his office? Do you have is it walking on eggshells, or do you get a chance to like really develop a relationship off the floor? Like, these are things you can ask the players, right? So I think it's really important. You got to assess everything, right? And we've talked about basketball fit. We've talked about the coaching staff and the culture. Those are two massive things to really, you know, analyze when you're choosing a college, you know.
And I think a lot of this can be done proactively before you get to campus.
Yeah.
Before you go to a game. Like, you've got to do some homework on it. You've got to watch them play. You've got to dig into their rosters. Take a look at that stuff. See if there is continuity, or like you said, if there's constant change. You need to do that ahead of time. You may save yourself a visit of going someplace where, like, man, like, I watch the way they play, like you said, you know, I'm a stretch 4. I like to play in the middle of the floor, and this team, all they do is the 4 and 5 man, just screen on the wings and roll the basket. That's all they do. Like, that's not going to, if you watch, like, you could see that, but you've got to set some time aside. That's part of your job in assessing these programs, is to do your homework. You don't have to watch every single game they play. Watch first half, right? Watch first half of 2 or 3 games and just see what does it look like. You can also see, talk about style of play. Do they play 5 guys? Do they play 8? Do they play 10? You know, how many people are getting in the game? You know, I know they'll be happy for this plug, but you know, our friend DJ at Grinnell, like, they play 15, they'd play 30 if they could. They sub 5 guys every minute. So if you see that and you're like, oh man, I got a chance to play, right? Because every minute there's a new line change going on. So things like that you could get by literally just watching them play and doing your homework.
Well, the last thing I want to touch on about coaching staff before we get into academic fit is the other thing you got to look at is program direction. Like, are they trajecting upwards and winning, or are they not winning? Because if they're not winning, and let's say it's a Division I school, is that coach going to be back? The guy that's recruiting you to staff, are they going to be back next year? Are they on a hot seat? I remember this past year we replaced a kid at a Division I school, and he had 6 offers. He narrowed it down to 4. Well, 2 of the 4 schools, the coaches were on the hot seat, and they ended up getting fired. And he didn't go to, and we kind of knew that was coming, so he chose to kind of cancel those 2 out, and he's going to a really good place where the coach just got the job. He's trying to build, you know, his culture and his guys, and that player has a chance to go be a part of his first recruiting class, which is something special, you know. So I think that's important too. Is where is the trajectory of the program? What is the stability of the staff as far as their job security? And are they going to be there for your 4 years, or are they on the hot seat? And, heck, you get offered and you say you commit early and they have a bad year and the guy's fired. Well, you're back to square one in the spring, right? So I think that's also important to assess as well. Is the coach stable in the job?
Or to that point, what if the coach left and went up, got a bigger and better job, and oftentimes they may take their staff with them, or they may fight like heck for their assistant to take their job. So again, like you said, continuity, there might be some of that there where the gal left, but they promoted from within. Obviously, if that's the case, there's something good that the administration or whatever is happy with with promoting from inside. So that's something to where if somebody leaves, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but are they leaving for the right reason, or did they get fired, like you said? Fired versus even on your own terms is a very different situation.
Sure. And I think that segues into let's kind of talk.
Basketball players, are you grinding in the gym but struggling to get noticed by college coaches? Your talent deserves the right exposure, and that's where Net Results Recruiting comes in. Whether you're in high school, junior college, or prep school, we help you connect with college programs, get you promoted to college coaches, and receive expert guidance throughout your recruitment journey. Don't leave your future to chance. Get exposure, get guidance, get results. Let our team find your team. Visit netresultsrecruiting.com today and take the next step towards your college basketball dream.